This is an open letter to friends and family. Here's the thing regarding aid, any kind of aid, uh, aid to this or aid to that, and aid to we give this African countries aid, and we give these Asian countries aid, and it's kind of becoming a little an odd situation. The Europeans and North Americans, my pink skin friends, your leaders, of course, keep printing money and giving it to the third world countries for their resources, and buying raw material with printed money, because they make sure their money, or their friends' money, in this case Uncle Sam's money, is their money. You have a dollar, and then you have an euro dollar. In a case in which the Europeans were allowed to issue debt in dollars uh, by Uncle Sam, apparently. So there are some debt issued in dollars in Europe on behalf of Uncle Sam. So that's a way to, you keep the dollar hegemony, is to, let other people, lend money in your name, lend your money in their name. So basically, a lot of dollar debt has been created with the help of Europeans around the world, around the planet. And this debt is literally, you're giving your own money. I'm saying that with regards to France, and with regards to France and these Francophile, supposedly like the British have Commonwealth, the French have Francophiles in Africa, and for apparently it has become clear that for a very long time, for the past 100 years, supposedly after colonialism, the French have been just printing their own money and giving it to the Africans for their raw materials at a very cheap price, relatively speaking. So, and Uncle Sam told them, you don't even need to, send your money to the Africans. You can send our money to the Africans, for their raw material, and you can issue debt on our behalf. So basically, and this sort of give you money for your raw material. Sometimes they pay a little extra. They call it, aid. Here is, go feed your children with this aid in Africa, and give us the raw material, pull it out. We don't care what the fuck you do to your nature over there, because we fucked up our nature a long time ago in Europe. So we don't really care about you do what you do in your nature, because you might as well fuck it up just like we did ours. So therefore Africa turned into, a mining shaft for Europeans and Uncle Sam's manager for a long time now. But Uncle Sam is self-sufficient, more or less, as long as imperial thoughts doesn't go to his mind. Anyway, but the point is this: Europeans most of all need African shit, and they have rolled it up in the form of aid. Why? Why this aid? Here's the thing, folks. Some of these aids, some from the beginning, started with the idea of, yes, it's a good idea to give them our modern medicine. Europe had developed some modern medicine, like the penicillin and blah 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 blah, and all the vaccines that over time the Europeans developed. These vaccines and these therapies and these drugs were not indigenous to any of these shitholes. in Africa. Let's be frank. It's not indigenous to there. Okay? And what is pharmacy? Basically, you recognize something does something, you extract that molecule, you try to find out which molecule within that system does something, and then you extract that molecule and try to synthetically replicate that molecule if you can. If not, grow that particular plant in large quantities and extract in large quantities and purify it and call it a pill. That's the pharmaceutical part of it. But the point is this: these guys, they're intellectually, scientifically, and technologically in Europe had reached the level of coming up with these, refined product. A pill is a very refined form of putting the active ingredient of that plant that does something good, extracting that, purifying it, putting it in a pill and giving it to you. That's the refinement system, but that's a long chain of chemistry and processing and industrial knowledge has to go into producing that fucking pill or that fucking vaccine. Okay? Now, that processes are not present in the destination country of aid. Those processes are alien technology to them because they're not there. Whatever reason you want to come up for it, come up for it. Good for you. The people in Amazon that are the tribes that are still untouched in Amazon, a few of them, thank God, that are untouched in Amazon, they're not there. So by you giving them a pill, here, just follow this example. You give a pill to a tribe of 50 members in the Amazon jungles, that this tribe has been of 50 members ever since the oldest one can remember. You know why? Because it's 50 members, because they do have the high infant mortality, and they do die of those viruses and bacteria that used to kill us as well. They do all of that. They go through all of that shit. So therefore, the last one who's alive is the oldest one, and he's all of 48. He's the oldest one in the tribe, and he's all of 48. And the reason he's the oldest one is the rest of them are more than 48. Basically, if you're not pulling your weight in the tribe, you might become lunch. So therefore, the oldest one is 48, and he remembers that they always had 50-member tribe. Their tribe didn't really grew from 50 members. So you say, oh, we care for these people. We care. We send them aid in the form of medicine. We send them vaccine, we send them but we send them vaccine, and we send them this, and we send them that, and we send them the other. Okay, fine. You send these vaccines and penicillins and antibiotics and vitamins and this and that. So the tribe that has always been for the past 5,000 years has always remained a 50-member tribe. If their medicine man was really good, maybe the tribe numbers will increase. But it was long shot. The medicine was never really that good in their tribe. So the point is this: in these situations, you take aid in the form of these vaccines and other shit. You take them over there and say, here is for you our products. We sell it to you at this price, and you can exchange. You can give me a lot of your oil and gold and diamonds and whatever minerals that I need. Here is our refined product, and here is some of the money we printed for your product, for your raw materials. The money that you printed is a debt-created money from either your own pocket in France or in Uncle Sam's pocket in New York. You have printed money and given it to Africans for the raw material. and a little bit of fine product, that end product that your medical system could produce, that very refined product you gave them in the form of product, not in the form of technology. And you don't have to give anybody any technology. If they can't use it, they can't use it. If they haven't come up with it, they're not there. I'll give you a prime example of it. The Uncle Sam's managers and the British gave the cheat sheet. They gave a cheat sheet to the Indians so the Indians can build a submarine and aircraft carrier. Anyway, they gave the cheat sheet to the Indians, and what you know, one of these finely cheated Indian submarines, which when I say cheated means that India's technology is not there, because Indian people are not there. This is some cheat sheet that has found its way from the British side. It came out of Uncle Sam's pocket. The British took a copy and gave another copy to the Indians. Their old colony that's supposedly now allies. I'm not sure what happened here. They fucked us up the ass, and now we are friends. This guy used to fuck me up the ass, but now we are friends. Anyway, this kind of perspective, that's supposed that Indians supposed to be on our side now because we used to be in the same bed. This idea comes with the attachment that says, okay, so India obviously can pull their weights because they used to sleep in bed with us. So they give a cheat sheet of the submarine to the Indians. The Indians build the submarine, and during the first half a year in commission, somebody somewhere with a group or within some part left the hatch open, and the fucking submarine sunk. Please follow. Somebody left the hatch open, and the $2 billion submarine that was designed somewhere else but built in India basically sank within within the first year. It sank. What does this tell you? So what does this tell you? It tells you India is not there. So it means that if you're not there, thou shall not be given the products of there. What I'm trying to say is, when you give this medicine, all these medicine, you give it to Amazon tribe, and what happens within a very short duration? The number of the tribe increases. Great. Wasn't this the idea? So the numbers of the tribe in this Amazon tribe in the middle of fucking jungle is increasing because we gave them all this medicine. So 50, then it's 150, then it's 850 within a very short span of time. That 50-member tribe is now 50,000 people within very short span of time. Why? Because you didn't change the rate of their perspective in life, their traditions in life. You didn't change that. You didn't change their culture, their cultures, their traditions, their beliefs. You didn't change that. You just gave them a pill. Hey, take this pill so your kid won't die. Okay, that's the best form of aid that anybody can come up with. There is no doubt that that's a good aid, right? An aid that prevents an infant from dying. That's a really good aid. But is it? What if they're not there? They leave a hatch open, and the fucking thing, $2 billion submarine goes down, becomes, a rust bucket once it returned, because it will take just as much effort making it sound again than it would building a fucking new one. So they weren't there. Therefore, this happened. What I mean by there is that the discipline required to test and re-examine and test and re-examine those processes, those tendencies that come along with building a weapon such as a submarine or penicillin. Those processes, if they're not there in their own societies, even just the discipline that is required for a system, any society, to produce penicillin, the system it requires for any society to produce the fucking penicillin, that is specific to that level of scientific and industrial achievement of that society. End of story. Now, if you give them the products, of those, if you give them the products of these complicated processes, which is producing medicine, it's a very complicated process. They don't have that. You give them the medicine and they just increase in numbers. Because why I say these two are related, because if you have, when you are at the level, industrial and scientific level of producing a penicillin like substance, you are in other fields such as engineering, such as medicine, such as civil engineering, infrastructure, roads, building large machines to do things. They're not there in any of those fields that are related, that are very much related to the same level of growth in medicine, knowledge and industrial growth in the field of medicine. So they're not there in other aspects of their society. They're not there. Like the tribe in Amazon. So they can't have these products themselves. So what have you done? You have put their society out of whack. Their traditions, the other fields of science and technology, it's not there for them. Their culture is a very reproduce as much as you can is kind of culture. This is what they do. They don't have TVs. You just gave them medicine. They don't have TVs to spend time with TV or computer. Still, their only, their best time pass is fucking. So they have one kid every year. So that's their best form of entertainment. And they start early. So you have a large number of these Amazonians who will overwhelm their resources. They will overwhelm the resources. You increase the number of those Amazon tribes with medicine and nothing else, they will override all the resources in Amazon. You will have a large group of Amazonians who are, eating everything that's moving in Amazon, anything and everything that is moving, because, they don't have agriculture. They can't, concentrate, grow their calories in a concentrated form in farms. They don't do that. They don't. They're not there. They haven't come up with the number 0, and they haven't come up with the number 100. They had, or they haven't even come up with the number 30 because there was never need for it, or 55 because their tribe has always had 55 members there. They haven't passed the number 55 because there was never any need for it. It's not your fault or my fault. This is just where they are, how they are. And the answer is leave them the fuck alone. Leave them the fuck alone. Don't give them aid. They're going to override the resources, and then they're going to get on boats and go to Europe to eat their resources. The same resources that you screwed them out of in Africa. Europeans have screwed the natives up in Africa, gave them medicine and took their raw materials, and the more raw materials these guys took, the more populated they became. Because your aid comes in, one of the most popular forms of aid is medicine. Here's some medicine, and here's some of Uncle Sam's money. He told us we can pull a check on his behalf. So you take that and you hand it over. They use it, they get poorer because you keep stealing their wealth, and they get more populated because part of what you're selling them, what you're aiding them, how you're thinking of so highly of yourself by giving them aid. Here is some penicillin and here is some vaccine. Make sure you have low infant mortality. Great. They had low infant mortality, their population grew, and they eventually found out that you've been stealing everything but the kitchen sink out of them, from under them. So now they're pissed off, and either they're coming to Europe or they want to fight Europe in Africa. What part of leave them alone you don't understand, folks in Europe? My pink-skinned friends. What part of leave them alone don't you get it? Here is the same. Now, in order to make sure that you understand that this is not a race issue, imagine an alien landed on Earth tomorrow, and since they have been observing us for a long time, they can speak perfect English. So an alien lands tomorrow morning in the mall in Washington, and they come out and say, "Hey, how you doing, brother?" And perfect English, and introduce themselves, tell them they don't have any kind of pathogen that might affect us to the worst. They declare that, hey, we are not pathogenic, we share the same bacteria and virus as enemies, and you don't need to worry about our pathogenity. But here's the thing, we have been observing you. Imagine that. We have been observing you, and it seems you want to live longer. Here's a pill, gives it to the president. He said, you take this pill and you can live 1,000 years. You can live 1,000 years. Instead of 100 years, which is your maximum on northern hemisphere on planet Earth in the year 2023, maximum 100 years, a little more, a little less, but very people with very short lives. So mostly with short lives, and if you're 100, you tell this president of the United States, here's a pill that if you take this as an alien, I'm telling you, we've done this many times, and here's a pill, if you take it, you can live 1,000 years instead of maximum of 100. And not only this is the pill, we give you as much as you want in the form of aid. We are aliens, we are landed here, here's a pill, we've been a bit longer around the block, so here's a pill, you can live 1,000 years. And we are willing to just give you the pill. We won't tell you the technology behind it, because that's beyond your imaginations. We can't share you the technology, we can't share the technology with you of making this pill, because it's beyond your imagination. Just like the production of a penicillin is beyond the imagination of that tribe in central Amazon. That's how it's produced, is beyond his imagination. And products and all those sterile products working together to produce that fine pill or vaccine. It's beyond his imagination in the Amazon jungle. So Just like the pill that the aliens give to humans and tell them that here's a pill, you can live 1,000 years with this pill. They can only share the pill with us because of their production. It's their knowledge and industry and necessary to produce that pill is beyond our wildest imagination. So, they share the pill? You share the vaccine with the Africans, with the black kings of Africa. You from northern hemisphere shared the vaccines that you had, which was necessary for extension of life. The vaccine was necessary for extension of life. The penicillin was necessary for extension of life. Okay, fine. Most people used to die at age 1 and 2 and 3. Now most people die at age 30, 40, and then later on that's 60, 70. Okay, so you increase the life. The point is this, just like the alien giving a drug to the people of Northern Hemisphere, or all humans on Earth, just like aliens giving a drug to all humans on Earth that increases life from 100 to 1,000, and everybody start taking that pill. Everybody stands in line in, in Congo. They stand in line to get this vaccine. That's a good thing, I guess. But when their numbers increases, but the other parts of the other aspect of society that needs to cope with larger numbers are not there. Their culture is not, civil engineering is not, innate to them, doesn't come innately to them. Not now, maybe in some time, but not now. Just like, you doing some rigorous physical activity is, for you, it's unimaginable. But many from that continent do it without a bat in an eyelash. Here's the thing. You got to be there. What I'm trying to say is that the technology necessary to build and refine that drug that extend a life in Madagascar, reduces the infant mortality and therefore increasing the lifespan of humans in Madagascar, when they don't have the technology to make it themselves, that vaccine and penicillin, if they don't have that technology themselves, what are you doing? They don't have TVs. They reproduce, they're too many, they overrun the resources, just like the Amazonians tribe overrun their resources in the middle of Amazon. If you increase their numbers where their culture is not there. When I say their culture, I mean, first of all, we recognize that, okay, if the industry necessary to produce the penicillin is not there, you can assume that the industry in producing washing machine is not there either. You can be sure that the processes involving producing electricity is probably not there. The processes, the roads, the bridges necessary to cope with slowly rising population because your technology and your science has evolved in all fields together. If you leave people alone, their technology and their science will evolve together. Goes up. Together, medicine and bridge building more or less went up at the same scale in Europe, basically together. The better bridges and longer bridges they could build, the better medicine they were pumping out. So they're related because the technology is related. The scientific know-how is related. So when they can do it, let them have it. If they can't do it, don't let them have it, because the rest of their technology is not there. The rest of the technology is not there. They're not building ships. They're not building oil tankers. They can't build cars, but you're exporting cars to them anyway. You're sending a product of which they can't imagine the complicated process of building this product. They can't imagine. It's not there. It's not there. They're not there. So, but you're exporting the products. So they're running, they're driving their cars like they used to drive their camels. Really? Because it was a very short skip and hop from camels to Mercedes. Where else in in Arabian Peninsula? Where in Arabian Peninsula they have the technology of building washing machines? They don't. Not medicines either, but nothing else. They know a bit finance now because they got a lot of money and they got practice in finance. That's about it. But the point is this: you're selling the final product to a bunch of people whose culture is not there. You see, when you become industrialized, when you build it yourself, maybe it will take another 1,000 years in Arabian Peninsula for them to build washing machine. But let them reach there by themselves. Everywhere in South America, in Central America, in Africa, in Asia, let them get there by themselves. Why are you exporting them products? Here's what Europe has done. That's the silly part of it. Europe has, after colonialism ended, but so okay, we won't run shit over there. But hey, if you give us the shit we want, here is some of Uncle Sam's. I'll be write a check on behalf of Uncle Sam for you. And here is some aid. We love you so much. Here is some more medicine, finely produced medicine, and finely produced machine guns. This is aid. Some aid comes over the table, some aid goes under the table. But you know, to our friends, whichever side there is, there are our friends. That's where the aid will go to. Anyway, you interfere for what purpose? You're helping them with the aid. Are you sure? Now their population has increased, but they don't have the other aspect of technology that goes with that medicine that gives them longer life. They don't have other aspects of that technology. So now they have, you know, for example, in terms of farming or water conservation or nature conservation, they don't have, their technology is not there in other terms, because it wasn't the natural development of their technology that brought them the medicine. Because it wasn't the natural development of their technology that brought them the medicine, they didn't know how to deal with it. They kept on reproducing, and the numbers outgrew the resources, and they didn't have the technology to reproduce more resources. So and then somebody who was keeping shit in order like Gaddafi, you remove him from power, and they're there. There's nobody keeping order. Their numbers have overrun their resources. Their population has overrun their resources because they shouldn't be, because your medicine kept more of them alive. I guess that's a good thing. But now that their population has overrun their resources, they come to your country, and they have some right to, because first of all, you've been taking their wealth for a long time. This wealth effect in Europe that's still going on in London, Paris, and New York. This wealth effect that everything is, you know, we're talking millions and billions. The numbers are so huge. A hot dog is like $12. But so in these places, the world has come into these places. So the Africans, now overpopulated and under-resourced, and they don't have the technology to put themselves together over there, because the drug that kept them alive, they didn't have the technology to make that drug. Now they're all in Europe. Half of them are in Europe, the other half are packing their bags. The same thing going on and and those who are trying to keep order over there, you keep overthrowing those because they suddenly, they're too nationalist for your taste. The problem with Gaddafi was he was too nationalist for your taste, my pink-skinned friends. That's it. That was his problem. He cared for his people. Now you don't care about Libya because nobody, the people who are there fighting, they don't care about Libya. They care about their own pocket. At least Gaddafi, you can say he cared about Libya. Pariah state, Mariah state, or whatever you want to call it. He said, okay, please give me a seat at the table. And you, my pink-skinned friends in Europe and North America, you said, fuck you. You sit under the table. Okay. And then accused him of something and took him behind the barn and shot him. Let's be frank here. I mean, got a leader that was keeping order in the Horn of Africa, a very tribal, shitty place that I can just imagine. It's a very tribal, macho, bullying kind of environment. It's very tribal, very primitive. So the guy that was keeping order for so long, you said, no, we want disorder. What was the purpose? We want disorder? So he was holding the shitty place together, you took him out, and now all the overpopulated Africans have been heading to Europe. What was that the purpose? What purpose does that serve? Folks, mixing races in this fashion, as in like we starve them over there, so we steal their resources over there, we bring their resources over here, we build big great buildings for ourselves, but then they want to come too. They want to come to the party. Well, the party is there because you had your wealth and you added their wealth to your wealth. Now you have double the wealth in Europe. So the Africans have invited themselves to the party, and the Central Americans have invited themselves to Uncle Sam's party. What's the problem? United Fruit Company didn't allow Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador to really have nationalist government to actually grow and be somebody, or at least be independent. They were having none of it. U.S. corporations wanted something, and Uncle Sam provided. Overthrew every nationalist government that they had in Central America. In North Africa, Uncle Sam's managers overthrew every nationalist government that they had in North Africa, from Egypt to Algeria to Libya in that's North Africa. There aren't any more nationalist governments anywhere in the world. But as soon as they said we are nationalists, you said no, you're not. You're communist. It's like, no, you're not hearing right, Uncle Sam. We said we are nationalists. You said no. There's no nationalism. There's only communism and capitalism. It's like, okay, capitalism, but I'm a nationalist. I want to keep some of the profit for myself in this country, for my people. And you said, fuck you, Panama. You don't count. You're under the table. We come and remove that motherfucker, and we put whatever sticker we have to put on him. You are interfering constantly. You're giving them aid when you're not supposed to give them aid. Back to what if the alien landed and gave the pill, and as much pill as anybody wanted on Earth, just dropped them from the sky. They drop these pill boxes from the sky, and everybody can have them. So if you take one, all it takes is one pill, and you can live 1,000 years. You think that's a good idea, and you have no information about how the technology works. You can't. It's just beyond your imagination. It requires such a science that is, at this point in time, is beyond your imagination of your scientists. So now what? Do we take the pill? Of course many are going to take the pill. What happens? If you live 1,000 years, One problem is still going to be overpopulation, because nobody dies, and you have 1,000 years to reproduce a lot of babies. If you can produce, maximum 10, 12 in one lifetime, imagine imagine reproducing 10 or 12 for every 100 years. That's 10 times the population just by one pill that gave you 1,000 years of life. If this happens, the result will be overpopulation, more babies, and people never dying unless in an accident. So what? The point is this: the infrastructure would not be able to cope with it. You in Northern Europe will also have the same problem that, you know, Central Americans and South Americans and Africans are having, and some Asians having overpopulation, because the medicine was there and culture was not there. Some of these cultures, that's it. I mean, something as simple as if the TV is not there, they will have more reproduction, and that means the poorer they are, they will have more reproduction. Let's be frank, because when you're poor, one of your main, your main extracurricular activity or your main pleasure comes from sex. If you're poor, if you're rich, you have other pleasures, other things you draw pleasure from, because you have the time and the patience to go find them, those pleasurable things. But poor people, fucking is as good as it gets, whether they're not married or married. So you keep more of their kids alive without their culture, expecting that you have as many kids as you can. The culture expects, in certain cultures, they expect that you keep, because you're showing your manhood if you have 12 children. I mean, go around in Utah or Saudi Arabia. It's the same thing. Some cultures, if he has 55 kids, that means he's not but that much bigger of a man. So in such a culture, you want to go and bring them, modern medicine, where I'm sure, the folks in Utah could figure out, penicillin, but in Saudi Arabia they can't. They're not there yet, because their technology is, none of it is native. So, but you give them the final product, they overpopulate themselves. Now they have too many people, but they're under-resourced because they don't have the knowledge to build enclosed farms, or they don't have the knowledge base to produce, chemical fertilizers. So as long as you provide the fertilizer, they can eat. If you don't provide the fertilizer, there's too many of them for the available food. So what have you done? You have created a bunch of more people to have more people suffer because they're under-resourced. You have created more people. Now these more people have to suffer because they're under-resourced. Why create more suffering in the world? Your aid has created suffering. Folks, here's the thing. If you're of different races, please don't share the product of your technology with each other. If they want, you can invite them and teach them the technology. But you don't share the technology. The Pakistanis came to England and learned the technology and went and built an atom bomb. The Indians likewise. They came, learned the technology, and went and built the... At least they can learn that. If they can learn the technology, they can handle the technology. At least if they can learn it. They didn't come up with it themselves, but at least if they can learn it and copy it, they may have some intelligence, and culturally may be at such a place that they may be able to handle nuclear weapon and don't blow their nuts off. uh, which I kind of doubt anyway. I think I think there are American observers on top of the nukes in Pakistan. I think that the Indians have their own nukes, and Uncle Sam's managers are very nervous because they don't have their agents on Indian nukes, but I'm sure they have their agents on top of the Pakistani nuke. Anyway, because they're not there. Atheism and technology and science sort of goes hand in hand. It does. The people don't want to admit it, especially the folks in charge of Iran right now. They don't want to admit it that you know technology and culture and the effect that they have on each other changes people. Changes, folks. It changes people. You can't have one without the other. It just does, because the discipline required for, like that, there was a story in which the Taliban were saying they're pissed off because there's nobody to kill. They have to sit behind desk and write on paper, and they just can't feel it. Anyway, yes, they can't feel it. Fuck. The point is this, folks. Aid, in this case, for example, in case of Afghanistan, the best thing you can do is leave them alone. Folks, leave cultures alone. Your woman's rights is not their woman's rights. It's just not there. Their women don't want those rights. Until they do, like the Iranians. Slowly they want some rights, and slowly whoever is in charge, if they're wise enough, they give them the rights, because the culture has developed. I mean, if you give them, if you demand responsibility from them in the society, then you have to give them some rights. That's rights and responsibilities goes together. So you have given responsibility to your women in the society in Iran, but they don't want to give them rights. The rights of, for example, choosing their own clothes. So you can be a bus driver, and if it's a man, it can be in short sleeves, but if it's a woman, it has to be long sleeves, for example. For a while, the Iranians were, telling the man should also wear long sleeves. For 10, 20 years after the revolution, everybody had to wear long sleeves. Fuck. So, because they knew if it's discrimination, if they say men can wear short sleeves and women can't, that's discrimination. The Iranians could recognize that much. So they forced the men to wear long sleeves as well. But folks, it goes, technology, culture, industry goes together. The culture changes. The culture has to change. The culture has to change from, if you have as many kids as you can, you're a bigger man or a greater man, or you're man's man if you can have 55 kids, like in case of Saudi kings. That is that culture. You don't want to give him the medicine that keeps all his 55 kids alive. You don't want to give that medicine because, okay, the problem is not him, you're giving it to everybody in that country. As an aid, that's something humane to do. Okay, something humane to do. Now they're overpopulated and under-resourced. Please open your doors. They want to come and have a go at your resource. Were you expecting something else? Yes, folks. If the aliens land and give us, at this point in our evolution and in our knowledge, if the alien lands and give us a pill to live 1,000 years to everybody, it wouldn't work out, because suddenly the population explodes, and not only the population, but the whole set of a different culture has to be invented for people with such a longer lives, a whole different, more knowledgeable, because you live 100 years, you can live as a fool. Maybe the second 100 year, you live as a fool. I think by the third 100 year, you have picked up a lot that would look extremely wise for people who have just lived 50 years. So it's just, the longer, people are going to be wiser, but also more time to reproduce. But if these two don't catch up, that means they go nuts reproducing without actually having their culture catch up with how to deal with people who live up to 1,000 years. Then again, you're going to have overpopulation problem, because people they can do it, they can use the medicine, but they're not wise. Their culture is not at the level of culture that goes with that kind of medicine. And that's the problem. Please don't aid each other. You guys are different. You screw each other's societies up on purpose. If they want, they can come and learn. We teach them, but we don't produce anything for them. We don't sell them the machinery. They have to build the machinery themselves. If they can't build it, they can't have it. I am sorry. That's as simple as it gets. If they can't build those sophisticated weapons, then we're done. That's the problem with the war in Ukraine. Folks, imagine if Ukraine was not helped with all this military hardware. Russia, who has 5 times as much military hardware, comes in. Ukraine has very small amount of military hardware because it's just the size of a country, size of population, size of resources, size of the industry. Goes in and takes over. It will take like 3 weeks, and the Russians go in, and within 3 weeks, no building gets destroyed, no house gets destroyed, nothing gets destroyed. The Russians go in and say, okay, now we have our puppet government over here, just like the Uncle Sam has their puppet government in Poland. We want our puppet government in Ukraine. If this happened, there was something like, when we say puppet government, is basically, the Polish are basically saying, yeah, we got a big brother here, Uncle Sam's managers. We have a club with Uncle Sam's managers. So the Russians are furious about it, that they're being cornered. And the Russians are exactly the same thing from Northern Hemisphere, and very paranoid. And they have the right to be paranoid, because they have seen the result of the British treachery. So the British, as usual, are fighting the Russians on Ukrainian soil and having Ukraine turn to a pile of dust. The reality is, if the weapons were not being exported to Ukraine, it will take Russia a week to take over Ukraine, with a little fighting here and there, take over Ukraine and put their puppet government in place. Let's assume that happened. First of all, a lot of Ukrainians would stop dying. All these Ukrainians would have been under somebody else's puppet government, but they would be all alive. They would be a lot more restless, but they would be still alive. But that didn't happen. That didn't happen. The reason the war continues going and Ukrainians getting killed and Ukraine turning into a pile of dust, the reason this is happening is because aid is coming from outside to Ukraine. Ukraine's capacity for production of military hardware was gone a long time ago, was maxed out a long time ago. So now the Ukrainians are dying with somebody else's weapons, because this is what I'm saying, that even military aid is wrong. Is wrong. That's military aid is what is killing the Ukrainians. If they have the capacity to, if they had the capacity to stand up to Russia, they would have. Because they didn't, they had to play nice, which they also decided that they don't want to play nice. If you have a monster like Russia next to you, you play nice. At least if Russia says don't be part of NATO, you say, okay, what kind of advantages can you give me if I don't turn my nuts into NATO? And what kind of advantages? Any kind of sane Ukrainian president would have sat down and say, okay, let's cut a deal, Mr. Putin. We won't go into NATO, but we want this, this, and that. You know, as our dowry. As our dowry, we want this, 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 and that. And we saw that, the Chechens got a good dowry and a lot of independence from Moscow, and that was the price to stay within the Union, or stay, at least, stay sane and, dependable, stable, and secure. That was, I guess, they got a lot of, attention, and they got a lot of resources to build, not to go anywhere else, just to build their land, and that's a good idea. Ukraine could have, asked for a lot of things from Russia for their cooperation, for their friendship. Now this guy who's in charge is fighting, destroying the country, getting people killed, while at the same time they can't produce their own arms with somebody else's arms. This is when I say aid is wrong. Aid is killing the people in Ukraine. It's not the Russians. If you're that great a power, you will succeed, or at least Ukraine is destroyed. Even if Russia pulls back, Ukraine is a pile of dust. Bank of America, BlackRock and Goldman Sachs are uniting to already putting their hat in the ring for the rebuilding of Ukraine, collecting money to rebuild Ukraine. Goldman Sachs and BlackRock. Anyway, the point is this, folks: you don't share product of technology. If they can have the technology, they shall have the product themselves. The best you can do is let them come and copy from your hand how it's done. If at least they can understand that and they can reproduce that, at least that. At least you may think that in other aspects in their society they have developed enough that they can. First thing first, don't share medicine, period. Don't share medicine. Everybody who wants to stay alive, every group of people, every country who wants to stay alive have to develop their own medicine. They can come to you and learn, but you're not going to build the machinery for them. You're not going to sell the machinery to them. You're not going to sell the product to them. You only teach them about the technology and show them. They want specs, you give them specs. Fine. Here's the technology, here's the information, here's the numbers, here's the specs. You can go build it and operate it, good for you. You're ready for that technology. But not the product. Not the product. Not military aid, no medical aid, no nothing. Or else you're causing your own headache in North America and in Northern Europe. You're causing your own headache by sharing products that cultures are not ready for. That the Amazonian tribe is suddenly a tribe of 50 for the past 10,000 years, suddenly becomes a tribe of 50,000 in the middle of Amazon, Now Amazon has run out of fish and birds and snakes. Fuck. No aid. Information. No aid, just information. You can share information. If they have the intellectual capacity to take that information and build themselves, that's fine. Then they can have the product. Because then their culture has moved to the point. To that point. If they can't, don't give them, don't sell them products that they can't handle. Just like you wouldn't be able to handle the pill that gave all your population in Northern Europe and North America 1,000-year life span. None of you are prepared for it, so you run into a lot of problems. So don't drive other people's society into problems by giving them aid, militarily or medically. Don't create problems. The problems are going to come back and haunt you. In life rafts.